Hello, welcome to another edition of Oklahoma Politics and You. I'm your host, Steve Byas, and tonight we're going to talk about the state Republican Party. May 2nd and May 3rd, Friday and Saturday in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Oklahoma Republicans will convene for their state convention. The party convention is truly an opportunity for the grassroots political activism that you don't see in many other countries in the world, and it's something we as Americans, I'm afraid, take for granted that we have that opportunity to make that much of a difference in our political process. And our guest this evening to talk with us about this event and some other things about the Republican Party is the state Vice Chairman of the Republican Party, Cheryl Williams. Cheryl, thank you and welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
The state convention, as I said, is May 2nd and 3rd,
right.
And so I'm sure you'll have a lot of, you're busy getting prepared
yes,
for
we
that.
are.
But before we get into the state convention itself, let's talk a little bit about your background and introduce you to our viewers. Are you from Oklahoma?
Yes, I was born in downtown Oklahoma City, and my parents still reside in Harrah, Oklahoma, and I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters. They're all here in Oklahoma. I'm a 3rd-generation Oklahoman, and I've actually been a Republican all of my adult life.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about your family.
I am married, happily married, to my husband, John, and we celebrate 30 years, July the 1st of this year. We're very excited about that. And I'm foregoing Hawaii in order to go to Minneapolis because we're true Republicans. And then I have
the beaches of Minneapolis.
The beaches of Minneapolis. I hear that it's snowing there now. We are going to take our oldest son and his wife are going to go with us. And then we have our other son, and he's married, and we have 3 grandchildren. And that's what life's all about, is making sure we have a nation that's there for our children and our grandchildren.
That's exactly right. Well, let's talk about how you got involved in Republican Party politics. I know that what I know about you, that you were an assistant to at the state capitol to legislators, and you chaired the Oklahoma County Republican Party at one time. Let's kind of start from the beginning, how you got started.
I have to tell you, I became involved because of a candidate. And I tell people that we become involved because of a candidate, and mine was Jerry Brown, who ran for governor back in the 1980s. And I was introduced to him at a coffee that my aunt hosted, and it was wonderful. I met a man who talked about my heart and what my heart was about. And after he lost the election in the primary, I asked him, how do I get involved and make a difference? And he told me how to get involved in the precinct process, and I've been involved ever since. And I was chairman of Oklahoma County in 2000 when we went to Philadelphia to elect President Bush as the nominee for the Republican Party. I actually had the pleasure of serving on the National Platform Committee at that time. But I have been a precinct leader. I've been at all the levels since that time.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
So I guess you stuffed the envelopes and made the phone calls.
I actually can make 100 phone calls in an hour for a candidate, and I'm happy to do that for the right candidates.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess you say all your adult life you've been a registered Republican when you first got an opportunity. And so who was the first president you got to vote for?
I voted for Gerald Ford in 1976. And it was interesting. I wasn't involved in politics, but I remember my boss was very much a Carter man, and I was a Ford person, and I wasn't really sure why. But we had some heated debates, and all I knew is I was a Republican, and I just thought it was awful that he wasn't a Republican.
Now, about when was it that you served as chairing the Oklahoma County Republican Party?
I served in 1999 through 2001, and I was elected without any opposition, and I could have run again, but it's a very time-consuming job, and I had a full-time job at the time, which I still have a full-time job that I get paid for. And then I put it anywhere from 20 to 40 hours a week in on top of that as the volunteer, as the chairman. Okay,
so our viewers will know. They see all this about politics. They think there's all this money to be made in politics. What was your salary when you chaired the Oklahoma County Republican Party?
It was $0.
Okay.
And I had the privilege. I had the privilege of paying my expenses to serve as county chairman, and I also have the privilege of paying my expenses to serve as state vice chairman.
That's right. You don't get paid a salary.
I get no payment, and I get no reimbursements.
Okay. Now, the state convention is coming up May 2nd and 3rd in Tulsa. First off, that's unusual for it to be in Tulsa.
It's the first time in over 20 years that we've been in Tulsa, and we decided to go there since Senator Inhofe is up for election again, and he's from Tulsa. We thought it might be a great time to go to Tulsa to just change it up a little bit. But it's a very important year because it is a year that we elect national delegates to the National Convention. We have 23 delegates and 23 alternates who will be elected at that convention. But we also write a platform and we pass it forward to the National Convention. So we're very busy right now getting ready for convention.
Okay, so we say it's going to be Friday, May 2nd and Saturday, May the 3rd. What happens on Friday, May the 2nd?
Well, it's very exciting because this year we have Vice President Dick Cheney who is coming in to help us raise money for the state party, and he will be there for a dinner. He'll be there for a reception. Of course, it costs money to go, and I get to pay my ticket also, and we'll be there to be with Vice President Dick Cheney. But also we give away they're awarded. It's not a giveaway. It's something they've earned. Grassroots Republican activists will be given some Party Builder Awards, and we also will give away the Ronald Reagan Leadership Award, which has been decided and is going to Janine Long. Out of she's been from Garfield. She's out of Guthrie now. She actually now serves on the National Federation of Republican Women's Executive Board. First Oklahoman to ever do that.
Now, will Lynn Cheney, Dick Cheney's wife, be?
We could only hope.
Yeah. Because a lot of people really say, forget Dick Cheney, they like Lynn Cheney.
She's wrote some fabulous books, and I would love to meet her.
A lot of good history type books.
You bet.
And I even read a novel that she wrote several years ago, and it's kind of an ironic book because it was about a guy, the vice president has a heart attack.
Oh, no.
And all that. This was years before her husband was
second lady, I guess is what she would be called.
Now, what happens on Saturday then?
On Saturday morning, we start out with a prayer breakfast, and we are actually praying for our soldiers and our troops. We will have the honor of having Kevin Calvey, who has just returned from Iraq, who will be there, and we are also honoring all veterans who are there that day.
Right.
So we're very excited about having him there, and we will literally stop and pray that morning for our troops and remember our troops, and especially those who are in harm's way right now. And then we'll start the convention and have speakers. Of course, all elected officials love to speak. So we'll get to hear those, and then we have a luncheon that's going to be a panel of legislators. Interestingly, that we now have the Speaker of the House is from Tulsa, and he is one of the panelists, and we also have a co-president pro tem, and he will be one of the panelists to answer questions from the audience.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, Kevin Calvey, I heard him speak today, and he said that we need to pray for the troops. We also need to pray for the mission that they win, and that will be praying for the troops too.
That's right.
We win, and we can get out of there.
That's right.
And
win with honor.
Yeah. The job of the vice chairman of the state Republican Party. We've already talked about it's a job with no salary. You don't get to serve on the Republican National Committee.
Right.
What exactly does the vice chairman of the Republican Party in Oklahoma do?
Well, I hope that I am a team player with the chairman of the party as well as the national committee people, and I feel my role has been, since being elected, to kind of be the cheerleader, to encourage people about voter registration, the importance of the party and how to get involved, and I count myself the highest elected volunteer. And that's what my goal has been, is to welcome Republicans into our process and to encourage those who have been voting Republican to now join the Republican Party with their voter registration. And
so you were elected when?
In April of 2007.
April of 2007. Right. And okay, now the one of the things that has been talked about here in the last few years, before 1988, Oklahoma used something that's called the caucus convention method of choosing our delegates to the national convention.
Right.
And in 1988, we went to a presidential preference primary.
Right.
And what are the arguments? What were the arguments to going to a primary, And what are the arguments of those people that want to go back to the caucus system?
Well, I didn't get to be involved in the argument in the 1980s when it was argued to go to the primary system. What I've heard from those who want us to stay within the presidential primary system is that it gives more people a voice. All Republicans get an option of going and voting at the election for the primary. However, on the other side, on the caucus side, so many of our presidential primaries have been, we don't know who is running, or we're called a flyover state because we've only had 8 electoral votes at the most. We have 7 currently, so it doesn't look as a big number. My thought, going back to a caucus system, if we do go to a caucus system, Oklahoma could be one of the first in the nation that's a true Republican caucus, because we are a closed primary.
Yes.
We only allow Republicans to participate in our primaries. And if we were the first or the second closed caucus state, we would take a lot of notice. And especially this year, 7 votes could make or break who was elected as the nominee. We can see that on the other side. Well, on our side, we're a winner take all. And it could be very interesting if we went back to a caucus system.
Yeah. Well, I know that it was kind of interesting to watch how it played out this year, in that Senator McCain seemed to do well in primary states, and Governor Romney and Governor Huckabee just cleaned his clock in caucus states. So why was that happening? Why was it?
The unfortunate part is that we see this also in our primaries. It's who gets the vote, who gets the interest of the media. And McCain has always been someone who has been loved by the media, and he's media driven. But Oklahoma, we are a bellwether state. Republicans in Oklahoma really do show a change, such as the election of Tom Coburn. He has been instrumental in bringing to light the importance of earmarks and what it has done and been detrimental. Just as Senator McCain has been driven by the media, that's what people went and voted for, I believe. On February the 5th, they went to vote for the winner as perceived by the media, instead of looking at the person who stood for the issues or had come and talked to them in their homes, which Mike Huckabee had done and Mitt Romney had done.
Yeah. The state party organization, now, you know, at the Republican National Committee, when we have a Republican is in the White House, even though it's not officially that he chooses the national chairman, in reality that's what happens. It doesn't work that way at the state level. Kind of tell us how that's different. If we had a Republican governor, would he just be picking the state chairman?
You might ask Frank Keating. He never had that success. I think what's more important in Oklahoma is that the Republican Party is very much built on the local level, and as it moves up, we start with our precinct times. They elect their precinct chairman, and it is actually the precinct's chairman and leadership who actually controls the county organization, and the counties are who control the state organization, and it moves up the chain instead of coming down the chain. And we're very much about a party that is built from the grassroots, from the people who are closest to the voter, which is the voter, and that's what we're about.
I've always said that's one good thing about not having the president.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not advocating not having the president.
Exactly.
I mean, but that's one silver lining in the thing, is that the grassroots actually has a say in who becomes the national chairman of the Republican Party. That's right. I know that our present RNC, Republican National Committee man, Len Wendell, has told me that he's told him, well, it's interesting that we're smart enough to elect the president, but we're not smart enough to elect the national chairman.
That's right.
You know.
Well, I think it's also the party structure. When you get on up into the higher echelons, you find that they all worry about the media message, whereas when you start down at the local level, they're not so much about the media message, it's about what's best for their families, what's best for their communities. I think that's why the Republican Party, as a grassroots organization, is very strong when we have a strong grassroots.
Very much so. And the grassroots are those. One of the things about the caucus system that I think is a positive is that it gets more grassroots involvement. When people feel like they can actually make a difference by going to these caucuses. You're going to have more people go.
That's right.
And you know how it is when you go to a state convention. It's almost like going to a revival service, you know, where people get pumped up, and you know, they hear Inhofe and they hear all these members of Congress, and they hear all these people, and they go out there and they want to go do something.
That's right. That's right.
Well, since we've gone to the primary, we've had fewer people going to our state convention.
And it has actually hurt, I think, at our local races, because then we don't have that volunteer base. And, you know, they say money is the milk of politics. Well, actually, it takes both volunteers and money to elect people at all levels. And we just lose the volunteer base when we don't energize them by being locally involved. Right. And
you know, and I think a lot of people, they misunderstand that we have a federal system in the United States, and you know, like President Bush recently ordered the state of Texas to do something, and Texas said, we're not going to do it. And well, you know, he has no more authority over the state of Texas than I have, and so you take it to the political parties.
That's right.
I've heard people say things like, well, this county off out here, you know, they're all messed up. The chairman's doing this. The state chairman ought to just fire him. He doesn't have the authority to fire a county chairman.
That's right. The only people who can fire a county chairman are the precinct officials who can move up. And they actually, it says within our party rules that it's the precincts that actually control the counties. And so it's very important that we respect those who we're serving. The servants, that's who we are serving those who are out there who have elected us. And if we lose our servant heart and our servant attitude, then we're actually probably not much better than the other side.
Yeah. Talking about the other side, we're going to have some challenges this year, and I guess the #1 challenge is maintaining the White House. The president, now Oklahoma has gone Republican for president since Franklin Roosevelt went to his reward in 1945. You know, Harry Truman won in 1948, carried Oklahoma. And Lyndon Johnson in 1964. That's been it for the Democrats. Have you seen any polling data in Oklahoma? I mean, is it just is it a foregone conclusion that Senator McCain will
that's my
carry
biggest
Oklahoma?
fear, is that the powers that be will just expect Oklahoma to go as a red state or as a Republican state. We don't like being taken for granted. None of us like that. And I think Oklahomans, as much as anybody, don't like that. The other side of that is that when you look at the other candidates on the other side, they don't even resonate with Oklahoma. Now, they can get excited. They're small base, but they, you know, Howard Dean came in and had, what, 25 people show up.
I heard about
and
that.
So I would think we could bring more people out to Mike Hunter or Mike Duncan than that. So I would hope we would do better, but I don't like being taken for granted.
Well, you know, the thing you take for granted, if you remember Governor Largent.
Right. That was a really short.
2002.
We lost that one small.
His lead in the polls over Brad Henry was large, and yet it was a race that was taken for granted, and Brad Henry is now the governor.
That's right.
And you see all the consequences of that.
Yeah. We're trying to build up our economy through a lottery and a lotto ticket. So, you know, we understand that, and that's not what Oklahoma beliefs have been about. So we don't want to be taken for granted, and that's why it's so important that we work so hard to elect Republicans at all levels of office. We can't be taken for granted.
And of course, the United States Senate.
Right.
Jim Inhofe was first elected to the U.S. Senate in 1994.
Right.
When David Boren resigned to become president of the University of Oklahoma. And I know this may not go over very well with our OSU people, but I actually told David Boren one time, I said, why would you want to be a U.S. Senator when you can be president of the University of Oklahoma? You know?
Exactly.
But seriously, you know, 1994 was when Inhofe entered the Senate. Before that time, he had run for governor, he had run for Congress, he'd gotten elected to Congress, been mayor of Tulsa.
He had also been an RNC member. He was the Republican National Committee man.
Yeah, he was. So, I mean, he has... he's kind of Mr. Republican in Oklahoma in a lot of ways. That he has been around, and Why is it that you would say Jim Inhofe is so popular in the Republican Party with the grassroots?
I think in Oklahoma he's very popular because he's always been a man of his word. And the one thing I can say about him is he never takes his cowboy boots off when he comes to the convention. He's always there as who he is.
Yes.
His roots as a conservative run deep. He is true to his word. I think he's learned a lot since he's been to the U.S. Senate. I would hope we would take the U.S. Senate back so that he could be chairman of the Armed Services Committee.
Yeah.
And I think it's also because of his work and his efforts that Oklahoma has been successful in not being reduced in our military bases through the BRAC commissions.
Mm-hmm.
Senator Inhofe needs to be given credit for what he has done.
It seemed like he's a very hard-working
Very
senator.
hard-working, yes.
And, you know, one thing that, you know, a lot of times in your position as state vice chairman, I was a county vice chairman, you have to not really, sometimes our public officials disappoint us.
Yes,
but we don't want to say it publicly.
Right.
But, you know, with Senator Inhofe, you don't have to sit around and worry about how he's going to vote. I mean, you can just relax that he's going to be voting the right way.
That's right. There's very few of his decisions that he's made that I would disagree with him on. The nice thing about Senator Inhofe is that I could approach him one-on-one and say, I was disappointed in you, and we could have an honest conversation, because that's the Jim Inhofe that we all know.
Yeah.
It's not just me as a vice chairman that he would reply that way with. It's with all people that he's that way. He's just a true conservative, and he's an honest and forthright man, and he's a gentleman.
Yeah, and he's not going to take it personal.
No, he doesn't.
Because to Jim Inhofe, the philosophy, the issues, America is what's number one.
And he has taken on the challenges, some very difficult challenges, such as the climatology, global warming, and he has helped to prove that that's an economic issue, not something that we need to be worried about. And, you know, here we've now seen the global warming issue been shown to be what it is, which is a lie.
Yeah. I thought it was funny when Senator Inhofe, the committee, when Al Gore came before the committee, and Inhofe was after him, and Al Gore finally said, I'd like to have breakfast with you, Senator Inhofe, and I thought it looked like Al Gore's had breakfast a few times.
That's right.
Since he left vice president. Yeah. State House, State Senate, we control the Oklahoma Republican Party controls the State House. We are tied in the State Senate.
Right.
What are our prospects this year?
You know, we only have one open seat for the House Republicans. We may have some other openings. I know Trevor Worthen, who is in his father's old district, is retiring or and not going to run for re-election. But we have a wonderful gentleman who is running for that. There may be more because it's a good seat. So maybe the prospects are more of, could we get to 60, which would then become where we could override a veto. That's a possibility. And it's something for us to work towards. First is to retain those good Republican lawmakers who are doing a good job out there. In the state Senate, we have some open seats that we've got some great people running for. I know I'm in OU country, but former OSU President James Halligan is running for the seat being term limited by Mike Morgan, and has a very good chance of picking that seat up, which would then make us have this majority in the state Senate.
Okay. We've got about 2 minutes left here, and I want to voter registration deadlines. We wanted to talk about that.
Yes.
What are those?
In Oklahoma, you cannot change parties after June the 1st of this year because of our primary system, and we are a closed primary state. And so I would encourage people who are voting Republican but maybe not registered Republican as a voter to finally make the change and vote with their party registration with the party that they believe have the belief system with.
Yeah.
And that's the Republicans, which is lower government, less taxes, family values, marriage is a sanctity, and that we believe in traditional values. And so join us.
Yeah. Well, we have found that, you know, a lot of times people that once they actually change their registration, then they go ahead and they start voting Republican a whole lot more, because as long as you're a registered Democrat, a lot of people feel like they got a little bit of an obligation to kind of look for somebody they can vote for on the Democrat ticket, and then once they make that switch, then they're happy about it.
They finally feel like they've come home, and we'd welcome them home at any point.
Very much so.
You bet.
Okay, we got less than a minute left here. I just want to, you know, thank you for being on the program this evening, and I know that a lot of people are very happy about you getting elected vice chairman of the Republican Party, and Some people think maybe you should go for the top job.
Well, you know, that's something my husband and I'll talk about after November of this year, because we have a job to do now.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being with us this evening, and please join us next time for another edition of Oklahoma Politics and You.